Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live here at JP Football Fanatics, and I am so excited. I'm so pumped to be with all of you guys again. Please, before we do get started, I'll give you guys a couple more minutes to do it before we really get going, but please drop a like on this video. Let me know what you guys think. I'll pull up even the graphic for you guys to see. Pull up hit on that like button here. Make sure on this video. Also, leave a comment down below as far as what you like in these videos that I've been doing, and maybe some feedback in terms of what would you guys like me to do for future videos too. I have taken some requests. I did see one request in one of my last videos I did, and I'm going to consider in doing that at some point during the weekend if I do have time. So, that's something to be considerate of. But please, guys, just hit the like button on this video and any other video that you guys like as well. Also, hit a comment down below as well. And if you're on the live stream tonight, please, I beg of you, please, comment on the live chat so I know you guys are with me and that you guys are raring and ready to go and you want to partake in any of my football conversations. We can do that for sure. So hit that like button on this video and drop a comment down below if you like and participate in the live chat. Also, just because it's been a while since I've really had any subscribers or new subscribers, so please, guys, if you are able to, I want more subscribers. I want some more help from you guys. Please direct me to the right direction, and please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that way you can all get all the news and new videos that I'm going to be posting throughout the week or whenever, so on and so forth. So that way when I have a new video posted, it'll be all ready for you guys to go. And that way we can also, you guys can watch those videos and you can also comment on what you like, what you don't like about your team. If I'm discussing about your team for that week, and so on and so forth. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, so on and so forth. Thank you. All right. So without a further ado, we will get started with our week 4 predictions. Not predictions. I'm sorry. The recap and reaction videos that I've been doing the last couple of weeks. This is week 4 already. We already completed week 4 as of last night. So it's good that we're already aiming towards the. So we're already like almost not so much the halfway point, maybe just about like the quarter point of where we are of the season. So, we're kind of seeing like some teams really coming on now. We're seeing some teams, that aren't looking so hot, or some teams that are trying to improve from here on out. So, so early in the season, a lot of football left. Definitely don't want to get too crazy or rant too crazy about some of these teams because anything can happen at any given time. You never know. So, but we'll get started with that. I have as you can see, I have my Google Slides all pulled up, and I'm ready to go with everything that I have planned for you guys to talk about for tonight. So there is a lot to talk about, and I am going to try and keep this video at least an hour, maybe an hour 15. I'm going to kind of try to time myself as best as I can, so that way I don't go too much into depth about a certain game, even if it's not really an important game to talk about. So I'm going to try my best to just do that, and so that way you guys will be good. So we'll start off. I have the picture of Tua. We all know what happened with Tua in last week's game, which we'll talk about. It was definitely something that was very concerning, very scary if you are a Dolphins fan, and if you've been on the Tua train for quite a while. I haven't really been on that train for as long as I know some people have when he was drafted out of Alabama. But definitely prayers for him. Hopefully everything is okay. So far, so good. Knock on wood. Everything's all good with him as far as him gaining consciousness, which is good. And, we're going to, and they're still going into further investigations on what really caused the whole thing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. All right, so start off with the weekly straight up picks. I did better this week. As you can see, last week was not a very hot week for me, which, that will tend to happen from time to time. So I'm trying to stay consistent. I'm trying to, my goal is really to be above 500 this season, considering with all the crazy teams and all the intense and the talented teams that there are out there. So I'm trying to stay above the radar as best as I can. So last week I went 9-7, which is not too bad. And my overall record right now is 33-1. So definitely not the greatest start that I have in years past, like before I even started this podcast, but it could only get better from here. So my goal is to be above 500 this year, and hopefully I will get that when I do my Week 5 picks tomorrow night. All right, so we'll do my top 10 teams after Week 4. So we'll talk some things about that. Number 10, we're starting with the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have been so good offensively. I think really what it is about the Dolphins that I really like is the wide receiver duo in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And I feel like with these two receivers is something that Tua needed exactly in order for him to be able to throw a deep ball and make some big plays. And the Dolphins have been able to do that offensively. Their offense has been so good lately and so unstoppable. And what I like about the Dolphins now they're using Chase Edmonds. Raheem Mostert is starting to get a little bit into the running game too, so he's getting some split time now and has been consistent. The run game has been a little bit better than it's been the first couple of weeks, but last week showed that Edmonds can still play. Raheem Mostert can still play as well, and we'll have some split time with Edmonds. But regardless, the run game is getting there, and it is getting better. And hopefully that this team will be on the rise. I know Tua is going to be out. We're not sure how long he's going to be out. Teddy Bridgewater is his backup, and he will play in place of Tua until he's ready to go, or if he's ready, we don't really know what's going on with him. But Teddy Bridgewater is serviceable. He'll get you some wins here, and we'll see kind of more in depth of how he's going to have a good relationship with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle in that time. But the Dolphins at number 10. Number 9, it's the Chargers. Yeah, I'll talk about that game a little bit. The Chargers, I know they've been wildly inconsistent, and that's mostly because of injuries. They've been hit with the injury bug this year in the beginning of the season. I know Justin Herbert's been hurt. Their pass rush wasn't really all that consistent this week. They started out really hot in the first half, but then they kind of fell apart in the second half there and almost let up the game. So I don't really know what's going on with this Chargers team right here, right now. But they're still at number 9. They're still a very talented, very good team that they deserve to be credited for what they've been doing as of lately. So, but they got the win. They did just enough to win. So I'll take that. Then you got number 8. The Bengals are making into my top 10 for the first time this year. The Bengals are a team that we're all still trying to figure out. This is kind of a weird team to figure out, considering what they struggled with the first 2 weeks of the season being 0-2. But I feel like now they're getting to like the latter part of their season, and they seem like they're playing better. But they'll be in the big test for next week when they play the Ravens. So we'll see how they really are. But I really liked the way that the Bengals have been playing defense, and I think their defense deserves to be recognized into my top 10. So that's why I kind of have them just above the Chargers and the Dolphins, because I think their defense is very consistent. They've been able to get a consistent pass rush. I don't think there's a lot of teams or a lot of people that really talk enough about their defense, and their defense has been there. Number 7's the Vikings. They barely won. I know everyone's going to say, yeah, the Vikings barely won. They shouldn't have really won in London, but they did. They won. Their offense has been fine. The defense has been not very good. They can't get a consistent pass rush going. Their secondaries are very slow. I don't know what's really going on with that defense. There's a lot going on with that defensive side of the Vikings, but their offense has been fine. And I think the Vikings as a whole, the team will be just fine, really, once they really get acclimated into the schedule. And once they get really into like the meat of the season, their defense will probably, hopefully their defense gets better as they play some weaker teams within the next couple of weeks. I know next week they're playing a weak team of the Bears. I know it's a team that Kirk Cousins usually struggles with, but they could probably take advantage of that dreadful offense of the Bears. So we'll see how that goes. Number 6 is the Packers. The Packers barely won by the skin of their teeth against the third string quarterback of the Patriots, Bailey Zappi, and the New England Patriots. But they still deserve some credit being in the top 10 because it's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is always going to find a way to win, especially in Lambeau. So they've got to be in my 6 right here. Number 5's the Ravens. The Ravens probably should be a little bit lower, but their offense has been really good lately. But just like with the Vikings, their defense has been playing absolutely, positively atrocious. And I believe a lot of that is mostly on their defensive coordinator, who has been doing a miserable job closing out games. And that we saw that last week, in which we'll talk about. But they're at number 5. Number 4, wasn't really expecting to push them up as high as I did, but I am. The Eagles are at number 4. The Eagles have been playing good football. I think really what it is about the Eagles is that they're so good in the run game. I think with Jalen Hurts and making some big plays on his feet really helps this team. I think Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell is also really good as well in the splitting time of the running backs. That's been doing good. So they're really doing good on the run game. And they do get some good passing plays here and there too. I think it helps, really makes a difference with AJ Brown in the picture in the receiver end, because now it relies Jalen to really throw to a receiver that's elite enough to make some big plays. So I think it makes a difference with him having AJ Brown in the picture. Number 3 is the Chiefs. The Chiefs are coming off of a really nice, dominant offensive win. I would probably consider it maybe a near perfect game for the Chiefs, besides a couple mistakes. Not really a whole lot of mistakes on their end, but their offense looked explosive. They looked like the back to the old Chiefs, the way they used to play offense about 3 or 4 years ago when Patrick Mahomes took over the helm and has been playing. So they're at number 3. And then number 2 is the Bucks. I know the Bucks lost to the Chiefs, and they lost pretty convincingly, considering that their defense just absolutely positively uh, played very soft against the Chiefs for whatever reason. And it's weird because they have all the help that they really do need. They have the defensive players that match up well with some of these receivers of the Chiefs that are, they're good, solid receivers. May not be exactly at the elite level, minus Travis Kelce, but the Bucks are still at number 2. I don't think this loss really affects them too much. I think they're going to be just fine, and so on and so forth. Number 1's the Bills. Bills are probably going to be at number 1 this year, the whole year probably. I don't see really any other team that's going to be any better than the Bills. It's going to be very hard to find a team that is better than the Bills. Bills has just been playing really well. They did struggle a little bit with the Ravens. They were down 20-10 at halftime in the Ravens, but their defense came to life and stopped Lamar Jackson in the biggest moments. And we'll talk about that one biggest moment that really was a change of factor in the game. And we'll discuss why the Ravens decided to go for the play that they did. All right, first we'll talk about Tua's scary head injury. We all watched the game. I'm sure, even if you didn't, I'm sure you saw highlights of the game, video clips all over YouTube, or I'm even sure you probably heard on the news too. I know it's been on the news quite a few times too. I know Fox News had it on one night. NBC News was on, ABC News. It's been all over the news, and really, I think the reason why it really hits home to these newscasts, and it really hits home to like probably parents too who have children that play football. And I think the reason why that all is just because the way that the situation was handled with to his head injury. Yes, we all know about Week 3's injury when he was taken out for the rest of the second quarter, but came back after halftime and played after being shooken up. It definitely looked like he was very wobbly. He wasn't able to stand really on. He could barely stand on his own 2 feet without someone really helping him there. And a lineman had to help him, so he was taken into locker that game, but he was able to finish the game against the Bills, and they won. So there's investigations going on there. So Sunday, and then we fast forward to Thursday, we don't really know what it is. We don't really expect him to go out there and play. We expect the coaching staff, the medical team, NFL, PA, whatever they're called. We expect them to say, no, we're not going to have Tua play this week because of just him just coming off of a head injury or concussion of some sort. They tried calling it an ankle head injury. Or no, I'm sorry, a back and ankle injury. The way that he was walking, if you watch the video clip from that Bills game, you can already tell that it was not just an ankle injury. That's not what the problem was. The problem was his head, and he just could not. He was barely able to stand up after being hit so hard. Then you go into this game on Thursday. We don't expect him to play, but unfortunately, in his case, he plays, and we all know what happens from there. After taking I guess you could say, wasn't really the hardest hit in the world. It really wasn't. But I feel like if you watch the clip very closely, you can tell that he didn't really hit his head that hard. But I think what really triggered him to go into that, with his fingers, intercrossing with one another and laying on his back very slowly, and what appeared to be him being unconscious. I don't know if he was exactly unconscious, but it looked like, based off of the video, that he really was, no question about it, and laying back on his back slowly, and wasn't not able to really do anything at the time, wasn't able to really move or some sort, which is a very scary thought. And but the way that he was hit wasn't that he was hit so hard, and he really wasn't hit that hard, but the problem of it was, I think what triggered it is like right before he hit the ground, because if you look very closely in one of the replays in slow motion, and if you watch it on YouTube too, because there is a clip of it on there, if you watch very closely, it looked like he was already experiencing some sort of head trauma before he even hit the ground. And a lot of that had to do with, and I think a lot of it runs back to Sunday's game with the Bills, after him coming off of a really hard hit uh, against the Bills defender. But yeah, long, short, sweet, and to the point. Shouldn't have played this game whatsoever. Definitely shouldn't have not have played at all at this game, and should have just allowed Teddy Bridgewater to play the entire game. And I think really, in this case right now, you could say that Tua's uh, career could be in jeopardy after this, and very well, probably could be for a little bit at least. But fortunately, he's been doing okay. He's been experiencing a lot of headaches, which is something that is, when you suffer a concussion, that's normally what you do get. So that is kind of like the normal sight of having a concussion. But the scariest part of it all was really the neurological part of it, where he wasn't able to really, in the beginning of the sight of the moment, he wasn't able to move around his fingers or anything. But fortunately, when he got to the hospital, he was able to do a little bit of those kind of things. But yeah, it was definitely very traumatizing to watch. It was very scary to watch. If you're a parent or a family member, of someone who does play football in your family, it's a scary moment. And it's unfortunate that this sort of thing had to happen, um, on anybody really, and especially on the teammates, the coaches. But everybody is held accountable, and when everybody's held accountable, it's never really turns out to be the greatest thing in the world. There's definitely people getting fired. There's definitely fines being distributed to the organization. So there's a lot of things that's going on with the Miami Dolphins organization right now. First, with this whole Tom Brady tampering situation, where he was talking to them in the 2019 season under his last year with the Patriots, and possibly taking some, being like the partner ownership of the organization or playing for them. A lot of talk going on there about Brady, with him tampering with the Dolphins. Not sure how that really is, but now with this whole thing with Tua right now that he got hurt, yeah, there's a lot of questions about this organization, and we just really have to really think about, like, is this we already know this team did not want Tua. We already know the organization was not crazy for Tua when they drafted him, and that was evidently shown by the expressions of Brian Flores, which ultimately got him fired at the end of the day. And here we come. Here comes Mike McCarthy. Not Mike McCarthy. Mike McDaniel to save the day. So we're not really sure what's going on with this Dolphins team. It could change this Dolphins season if he's out for a while, definitely. But Teddy Bridgewater could also win you some games too. We know, and we've seen what Teddy Bridgewater is made of. He's not Tua. He's not exactly the kind of quarterback that's going to make deep throws. He's not going to extend a lot of big plays. But what he can do, he is a little mobile outside of the pocket. He's very underrated in terms of being outside of the pocket and scrambling around. I think he's very good at that kind of thing too. But he is very conservative. He's like a Jimmy Garoppolo, uh, a Mac Jones, like that kind of thing. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but he can manage the clock very well, and he will help you win some games or keep your games close if your defense comes to par. But with all that being said, really, prayers for Tua, prayers for his family, himself, and hopefully he is back out there soon playing some football. I'd like to see him pick up where he last left off when he does come back. It's going to be a little bit until he does come back, but the Dolphins should be grateful that they do have a solid backup in Teddy Bridgewater. So prayers for Tua, prayers for his family, and prayers for the team as they hopefully get all this whatever it was really resolved. And I know there's going to be a lot of people in trouble or have already been fired. So, and rightfully so, rightfully so. This injury right here could have cost him his life, no doubt. All right, are the Bengals back? So we talked about the Bengals when I was doing my top 10. Are the Bengals back? I think right now with the latter part of their schedule, I guess you could say they look like they're back. They had a nice win with the Dolphins on Thursday night. They looked consistent. Joe Burrow played clean football. I thought he played the best football uh, so far this season. I believe he was only sacked once, so the offensive line did a good job with protecting and being able to scheme up with what the Miami's defensive line was able to, bring to the table, which really wasn't a whole lot. Their defense kind of looks a little shifty right now. Not exactly the kind of defense that I was expecting heading into the season. They've been very inconsistent. They don't really get a consistent pass rush going. Um, their secondary is still good. Their secondary is very good still. But there's just a lot of inconsistencies on the defense that kind of what had the Bengals come back and win this game. Not come back, but win this game. But yeah, the Bengals. I guess you could say they're back, but I wouldn't really be too surprised if they kind of struggled again. Just taking a look at their, the next couple of games that they do play in the season. They play the Ravens next Sunday, so that's going to be one of the biggest tests that they've had yet this season. We'll see how they really manage Lamar Jackson. That defense manages Lamar Jackson and company, and we'll see how Joe Burrow can take advantage of the lacking of the defense of the Ravens. The Ravens defense is fine, but letting up way too many big plays, man. They're just not. I don't know what's up with them. They're just not playing good. They're good on paper. They're very good on paper, but they're just not playing consistent football. They're not playing the kind of defense that we've seen from the Ravens play in the past with getting like a consistent blitz going on and such. So a lot of things going on there right now. And, I think this is the time where we can see the Bengals make some big steps forward. We can see Joe Burrow. Definitely can see Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase getting back on track. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, who's been getting involved in this offense, and that helps Burrow and the offense a lot too with him getting involved. So that's good to see. Joe Mixon, who's a very underrated running back. I wish teams would really, or even like the media, I wish there's people out there that would respect Joe Burrow as much as, not Joe Burrow, but Joe Mixon as much as I do. Joe Mixon's a beast. He's an absolute beast. And with a dreadful offensive line that he has under, the Bengals with under center of Joe Burrow, even with that bad offensive line, he still can make some plays. He'll find some open spots. He'll get run to the outside and whatnot. Joe Mixon's good. And this whole Bengals team is good. Their offense is good, just not been consistent. So with that being said, do they start playing consistent? Well, when you got to play the Ravens, that's a tough team to play. You got the Saints. That's another tough team. The Falcons is a team, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The Falcons have been a team that's been kind of sneaking up on teams, and they got a second win already, and nobody was expecting that. The Browns, they play. So on the whole month of October, the 4 straight weeks, they play really tough teams. I think the weakest part is probably the Falcons, because the Falcons, I believe their inconsistencies really is in their pass rush. But what they are strong in is their secondary, so we'll see how that really works out for them. But this is going to be a tough month for the Bengals to really showcase themselves and see what they do. Not saying that they can't win those games; they absolutely can win. At best, maybe, uh, 2-2, maybe, and puts them at 4-4, or maybe a 3-1, and we're looking at 5-3. That's very well possible. Or best case scenario could be 4-0, but that's not very likely that that does happen. But never know. It's the NFL. But yeah, the Bengals have a lot more. They need to work a lot more on their offense. Their offensive line needs to be consistent. Just that whole offense, I feel like right now really needs to start really proving themselves to, show people that they are back. And this is a team that's not the fluky 21 Bengals where they made it to the Super Bowl, but they lost, by the skin of their teeth. This is a team that's for real. So that's what they're going to want to try and prove. And can they do it? We'll see. But I liked what the Bengals have been doing. I appreciate what Joe Burrow does for this team. I think he brings a lot of energy to this team. I think he really believes that this is the best team in the NFL right now, which is probably, in some cases, yes, they probably could be in terms of receivers. I think they have one of the best dynamic duo receivers in the league right now. I can definitely vouch for that for sure. But also, it's about consistencies, which really kind of puts a damper on what this team's identity is going to be for the rest of the year. But we'll see, though. I think they are. I think they're going to head back in the right direction. They'll start winning some games. I think they're starting to gel together. So that's how I feel about the Bengals. So I think they look like they're back. Okay, we'll talk about this game, and I wanted to talk about it. So who calls an offensive play on 4th and goal with over 4.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter? Like, okay, so you're tied 2020. Okay, you're tied 2020. You can't convert on the first three downs when you're near the goal line. Try to run it with Lamar Jackson. This doesn't really work out well, which is something that you would normally do if it was like a shortened goal. You would try Lamar Jackson, you would get him in, but they didn't do that. They made some very questionable play calls as far as like that kind of goes. J.K. Dobbins was not able to muster in through the touchdown. And then you go down to 4th and goal. I believe they had a penalty. I can't remember exactly if they had a penalty that backed them up a little bit. So that's when we saw Lamar kind of do his thing and try to scramble out, make a big play out of something, or try to get into the touchdown. But yeah, I don't really know what really happened there. I think it was just bad offensive play calling. And then you look at the fourth and goal play. You're thinking, okay, this is an easy field goal for Justin Tucker. He should be able to make this no problem in his home stadium in this kind of weather, right? So you would think they would go for a field goal. They don't. So instead, they decide to go for it on 4th and goal, tied at 20. Guys, keep this in mind. Tied at 20. And when they did that, what happens? They called an offensive play. It was a pass play. Why? I have no clue. I don't know why they didn't just let Lamar Jackson just run it in for a touchdown, because he would have definitely been able to get in to the touchdown. He was able to really absolutely obliterate, at least in the first half, through the Bills defense. There hasn't been a lot of problems with that. But for whatever reason, in the second half, they weren't able to score any more points again, which I think a lot of it all has to do with, offensive play calling. And I think that's what that play really caused them the game, was Lamar threw an interception right in the end zone to Jordan Poyer, who picked off Lamar Jackson twice. Once was with a batted down pass from Lamar, and then the 4th and goal one. So I'm thinking to myself, what a stupid play. Why would you, like you don't even have to be an offensive genius, really, or like a football fanatic per se. I guess you could say you don't have to really be a football fanatic in order to really understand, like, okay, I understand that you want to convert to a touchdown. It would be kind of different if you were trailing and you wanted to try to win the game. That's more respectable. But the game's tied 2020. You got your best kicker in Justin Tucker. And at the very least, you have a good, strong enough defense that can be able to, I guess you could say, would be able to hold up a little bit on Josh Allen. You've been able to step on them all day long, but they didn't. They absolutely, positively blew that whole game and it really started the spike with, right before the end of the first half. And then from there on out, it was all Bills. It was like a brand new football game. As soon as the Bills started to really make that big comeback and they were able to turn Lamar over quite a few times, yeah, the Bills just took over from there. And then you're like, man, what happened? Like, what happened to the Ravens after that? Like, this is the second game where they were winning by double digits, and then they lose. Like, this team should be not be 2-2. This should be a 4-0 team. In some cases, yeah, you could say they should be 4-0, absolutely, but why aren't they 4-0? Well, ask their defensive coordinator. Ask their defense. Why aren't they 4-0? Why isn't this team doing well enough? Like, why aren't they closing out games? Why aren't they letting Lamar make the big plays or letting Lamar do what he does best? And I'll never really understand all of that. But regardless, though, the Ravens deserve to lose this game. Just by the way they played the fourth quarter, they just disappeared. They completely disappeared in the fourth quarter. They didn't play again. They only played a half of football, and they couldn't close out the game. They just could not close out the game. And regardless, whether or not if they couldn't stop the Bills' offense, which they probably wouldn't have been able to really stop their offense because they were just moving, moving the ball down the field once really Josh Allen got himself back into the game and they were able to score some touchdowns and such. But really, at the very least, you could be really thinking about right now, like, even if you kick the field goal and they're making a ton of mistakes or whatever, like, we got to get a consistent pass rush going. Like, you would think that we can get this pass rush going. We've been able to stop them all day. Why can't we do that? I don't know what it is about this Ravens team. The only way the Ravens, and this has been the thing with the Ravens for such a long time with this organization, is that if the Ravens want to put a pressure on any team, the best way they do it is, and the only way they can put any pressure on a quarterback is blitz. When they blitz the quarterback and they get to the quarterback in time, that's the only kind of consistency of a defense that you're going to see from the Ravens. Other than that, when they try to play man coverage or they try to play coverage and they spread out their defense more, their defensive guys more, they just kind of relax and they don't play up to standards where they should be with considering with all that talent that they do have on the defensive side. So you get what you get right there. And that's the Ravens' way. They've always been good in the blitz, and that's the only way they know how to play defenses if they get the blitz on. And they haven't really been able to get any kind of pressure on any quarterback yet this year. As far as I know, when watching some of these games, they haven't really been able to get to the quarterback. They can't keep up with consistent pressure on anybody. So that's why they're losing these games. And they rightfully deserve to lose this game right here. And the Bills did not play a very good first half of the game. They struggled enormously. For sure. They definitely struggled. But what I did appreciate from them is that their defense didn't let up any more big plays after the first half, which is something that was a little bit concerning for me with the defense going into this game. I figured the Bills would win, and I picked them to win. But I was a little bit more concerned with the defense of the Bills that would have a tough time with stopping Lamar Jackson. And they did. They did have a very miserable time being able to stop Lamar. But what they were able to do is they were able to make some adjustments, and not just adjustments, they kind of just luck out a little bit because at that point, their offense was not there anymore. They just completely disappeared. Completely disappeared. And I can't understand why they didn't win this game. And I'm sure the Ravens right now are just thinking to themselves, Lamar, John Harbaugh, Marcus Peters, who was having a hissy fit at the end of the game, like, you name it. These players are trying to figure out how they lose a game like this and how they lost to the Dolphins too. That's probably what they're most annoyed about with losing to the Dolphins. How can you put 37 on the board against Bill Belichick's magnificent defense, or I guess you could say more of his defensive style to slow down quarterbacks, but you couldn't close out games with the Dolphins and the Bills, teams that you match up really well with. I don't know. But congrats to the Bills. Bills are a very good team. We all know that. I'm not going to talk too much more about it, but the Ravens got a lot of work to do. And if they don't keep up any kind of consistency when they go to play the Bengals next week, oh boy, it's going to be a rough night for them if they can't get anything started. It's going to be a rough night for them if they don't get this figured out. their defense. In terms of their defense is what I'm talking about. So they've got to get that figured out if they want to win that game. All right, Vikings survive in London. All right, so the Vikings, I guess you could say they kind of played a decent game overall. Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins did have some mistakes. He threw a pick, early in the game, kind of, I guess you could say. Justin Jefferson was good. He had a really good bounce back game. I know he's been kind of quiet the last 2 weeks against the Eagles and against the Lions, but he came back to life and played against a tough defense of the Saints, and he had a really good game. He got a touchdown at least. Was able to make some big yardage, go down for the deep ball. So Justin Jefferson had a really good game. But what I'm really concerned about now is not so much their passing. Their passing is consistent and it's good. But what I'm mostly concerned about now is really Dalvin Cook. For one, on the offensive side, Dalvin Cook and his running ability. He does not seem like he's the same Dalvin Cook that we have all known and loved for years since he's been playing with Minnesota. He hasn't really done a whole lot of yet. He's kind of injury prone, really. He hasn't really been able to make like big time rushing plays that he used to make in years past. So I'm a little concerned about Dalvin Cook and how they're using him, and just the way of how he's playing. He's not playing the same old Dalvin Cook that we all used to know that he used to play. And besides that, really, their defense also is very concerning to me because I believe with all the key injuries that the Saints have, and this is like no discredit to the Saints at all. They played a good game, but there's no reason why with players like Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and there was a couple other key injuries too that really hurt them too. There's no way with all of those injuries from the Saints offense, there was no way how or why you should have given up 25 points at the Saints. There's no reason for it. Now, you take a look at the Saints side. The Saints, I believe, just based off of when I was watching this game, I thought Andy Dalton and Chris Olave and the whole offense for the Saints looked better, in my opinion, than when Jameis Winston was under center. Just saying. Andy Dalton, you heard it here first, folks. Andy Dalton looked more consistent and he looked better than Jameis Winston did the first 3 weeks. Could that cause some controversy in the quarterback room? I haven't really heard any resources about it. I haven't heard any articles or press conferences yet. That could be a problem. Could be a problem right there if Jameis doesn't, get healthy or start playing better football. There and just saying, Andy Dalton is not your full-time starter anymore. And so on some teams, he hasn't really had a lot of success the last couple of years. But I do believe Andy Dalton is, in my personal opinion, I believe he's better than Jameis Winston. I'm just saying that right now. I believe he is better than Jameis Winston for a couple of things. First, Andy Dalton does not always make good decisions. The football, we've all seen that before when he's played with the Bengals. He's had some dreadful games, like outright bad, terrible games. We've seen that when he played with the Bengals. But there's also a time where he's also been playing really well. When he played after he got, traded away from Cincinnati and he went to go play Dallas for a year as Dak Prescott's backup. And the stat line may not show exactly the kind of game that he did play when he did take over for Dak after Dak's injury. May not show exactly, his stats may not show exactly the impressiveness of how he really was, but you could tell with a good offense that if you're giving him a good offense, you're giving him good receivers, you're giving him a good running back to work with, you're giving him a pretty decent offensive line that's good enough that can hold for him. Andy Dalton can play football. He definitely can play football. He may not be the most consistent quarterback, but I believe he's way more consistent than Jameis Winston. I feel like Jameis Winston just plays stupid football, and he just slings the ball wherever he sees the first player, that's who he throws it to. And then sometimes he'll throw an interception, or sometimes it'll be just out of luck, and he will have a completed pass. But Andy Dalton, I'm just saying this right now, Andy Dalton looks more consistent I think he looks more comfortable with this team. I think with the talent that they do have, and they do have talent, they do have talent. I think with enough help that you've given him, Andy Dalton should be starting right now for this team. I feel like Andy Dalton did all the right things personally. I thought his stat line was good. He looked consistent. He looked comfortable under center, and he was able to make some good. He was able to make some good throws. He can still sling the ball down the field pretty well for someone like his age. He can still do some good things. He can get outside of the pocket a little bit and can extend some plays. So I believe personally that the Saints did all the right things to keep themselves in this game. Their defense played well, had some good turnovers. They got some consistent pass rush. They did get Kirk Cousins a little bit under pressure, not as much as I thought they would have. But the Vikings offense and their offensive line has been playing better and better each game out. That kind of took the Saints defensive line and their secondary out of the question a little bit. So it was a little bit lacking, but they did all the right things. They didn't really make a ton of mistakes. Really, I thought they made all the right decisions. I thought they played consistent. But really, if they would have had players like Michael Thomas, if Michael Thomas was in this game, it could have made a little bit more of a bigger difference, and they probably could have won this game. I think the Saints, if they had enough juice in them, if they had Michael Thomas and some key parts of this team, they probably could have won this game. But they didn't, and that's the way they got to live with it right now. But right now, the Saints aren't really looking like the best team unless if they get a quarterback change. And I would say if I was the Saints right now, I probably would start Andy Dalton for next week already. I'm just saying. I would start Andy Dalton right now if I wanted to. If I was the coach of this team, I would start him right now because I feel like with him you can have more consistency. You kind of know what he is already. He's been in the league for quite a while now. He's been around a little bit, so he's had the experience under his belt. He's also been the backup role. I think now it's time to see, okay, if he's not playing well, then we'll go back to square one and we'll have Jameis play. That's all you can really do with that. But I like to see Andy Dalton play next week. I like Andy Dalton as a person and I like him as a quarterback. And if I was given that opportunity to have him as my backup or as my backup right now, I probably would take him, quite truthfully. So that's all I got to say about that. The Saints did all the right things to keep themselves in this game. I thought they just had some unluck that just didn't go their way, and that's what really cost them this game. But they'll learn from it. They'll get back on track. They're still a good team. They just gotta really be consistent with themselves and be better. That's really all it really comes down to. And that Vikings defense, man, there's something that's gotta be done about that Vikings defense. Their defense is just trash. Absolute hot garbage. All right, so we got the Steelers and the Jets. We'll talk some about this game. It's mostly going to be about the Steelers, but Mitchell Trubisky was benched after the second half, as all of us already know. Steelers fans, I'm sure this was like the happiest moment of your life. This was probably like the biggest moment of your life since the Ben Roethlisberger days, where you're thinking, "Oh, we'll have our new franchise quarterback. He's finally starting. This team looks so much better with him." Under center than Trubisky. Trubisky was garbage and this, that, and the other thing. Okay. Let's calm down here, okay? Steelers still have a lot of problems. And we'll talk about them. The Jets. We'll talk about the Jets first. The Jets, I thought, for a lot of people who like to trash the Jets, including myself, I'm not the biggest fan of the Jets, I guess you can say. I watch their games because typically I'm a New Jersey guy and I follow New Jersey sports like the Jets, the Giants, you name it, like teams around my area. So I do root for the Jets on some occasions just because they're a local team for me. But I gotta say though, the Jets, and I know a lot of people pick on them, but the Jets really don't look all that bad. I really don't think the Jets have been playing all that bad of football. I don't like how people are really criticizing them. I don't like how people criticize, Robert Saleh. Yes, I know Robert Saleh hasn't really done anything huge from this team yet, but it's the New York Jets. Their organization is absolutely, positively atrocious. So you can't really expect that to really, you can't really expect a team that has so bad of a reputation of an organization just by the coach that they have. I think Robert Saleh is not a great coach, but he's a kind of he brings a lot of excitement to the table, I guess you could say, with his young team that he does have, the Jets, and they are a really young team. Zach Wilson's young, Brees Hall, Michael Carter. They're all really young people for sure. They're definitely young, so they've got a lot more work to do before I can consider them like one of the top teams. But as far as their consistency and the way they play, I think there's a lot of inconsistencies with this Jets team. Yeah, I think they're 2-2, and I think it's rightfully so. They do earn to be 2-2, maybe 1-3 more likely if you take away that win from the Browns. But the Jets, there's not a whole lot of bad things about the Jets. There are some good things I like about the Jets and what they do. And I think a lot of what I do like is the consistency of their defense. Their pass rush is a little bit iffy here and there. They give up some big plays here and there, but they also can make you some plays too if you don't watch out. So their defense is very flashy, for sure. Their offense is also very flashy. I saw Zach Wilson. I thought despite the interception that he did have, I thought Zach Wilson played an admirable game, and I thought he played the best fourth quarter game that he played in his career so far, is how I look at it. I believe Zach Wilson, I think, is going to take some steps forward if the Jets do the right things to protect him and if he can stay healthy. I think I think he does have a very underrated receiving core of Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson. I don't know. I believe Garrett Wilson played in this game. I'm almost positive he did. Um, but I got to look at that and see if he did. I think he did play in this game. I know he was injured a little bit, but I believe he played in this game. And Elijah Moore, who's also been, underrated too. Brees Hall, Michael Carter. We're not really seeing a whole lot from their running game yet, which is kind of expected. I didn't really think we would see a whole lot of their running game yet, but I think once this offensive line kind of starts getting themselves acclimated a little bit, they might do some things in the run game. Hopefully, we'll see if that happens. But yeah, I mean, there's some things I do like about the Jets. I think Zach Wilson looks better. I think he looks better than he did last year. I'll say that. I think he looks better. But we'll see. And it's kind of surprising how he played better against the Steelers defense than he would have played in any other game. I feel like if he would have played in any other game, you would have saw a lot of errors with him, a lot of like mismatches, I guess you could say, and a lot of like inconsistencies with him. But I thought he played admirably well. I thought he had a great fourth quarter that he's probably ever played in his career. And I like the defense. I think the Jets are on the right track. I think their coaching staff is a bit of a question mark, but I like the energy that they do bring. They could be, I think you could consider them probably a better team than what people think of them to be. I think that you can say they kind of are sneaky. What do you call? I think they're kind of sneaky like the Detroit Lions, where they can probably beat you in any given way. I think they can beat you on offense with Zach Wilson, with his last minute touchdown that he did have with like 10 seconds to go in the game, or they can also beat you on defense, or they can beat you on special teams. And we saw all those three phases of how they won two of those games. We saw them win by special teams, where the Browns lost in less than 2 minutes left after being up two touchdowns. Don't know how that happens, but it does. It's football. Anything can happen. But we also saw them make some big time interceptions too against the Steelers, and a game sealing interception against the Browns too. So now we'll head over to the Browns. So Trubisky is benched now. We all know. We kind of figured that this was going to happen eventually. I kind of figured it would happen eventually. I just thought I didn't really expect it to come too soon, because I thought the Steelers would have had a better time with managing against the Jets, but they were struggling enormously. Mitchell Trubisky looked very flat, I feel like, and he had some moments where he had some good throws, I guess, here and there, maybe, but definitely not a great game for him. Definitely was not a good game, and I get where Mike Tomlin was coming from. It was the right decision, I believe, to bench him for Kenny Pickett. I think that was the right decision if you're playing the New York Jets, you expect higher expectations from an experienced quarterback to do better than putting up 6 points before halftime. I get that. So I get them for putting Kenny Pickett in. I get the whole thing with getting a spark on the team. I absolutely get that. And Kenny Pickett did not play, in my personal opinion, did not play any better than Trubisky did. I don't think he played any better. Yeah, he got them a couple touchdowns. Congratulations, Steelers fans. Yes, he got you a couple touchdowns, sure. But still some inconsistencies with him. He threw 3 picks. Some of them were not his fault. I will give him that. But just looks very raw. And just based off of a report today, okay, based off of a report today that they're saying that Kenny Pickett will be the starter moving forward. Now, the Steelers play the Bills next week. Okay, they're playing the top 2 defense in this league. So, does that mean that Kenny Pickett is going to struggle against this Bills defense? Definitely, without a doubt, that he will definitely struggle. Do I think it was the right decision to move off from Trubisky? I would have said if he does not play well, if they're getting beat up bad, which is very likely, the Bills will absolutely positively stomp on the Steelers next week, just of how talented they really are. I could definitely see that being the case. I would have just thrown out Trubisky out there and see what he could do against the defense, against the Bills defense, which probably he wouldn't have done anything special or anything better than Kenny Pickett would. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how this works out. I hope it works out for Steelers fans. I hope it works out for Kenny Pickett. He's a Jersey boy like me, so I give him a lot of respect from there too. But I just don't think he really makes that much of a difference with this lacking offense that the Steelers do have. They just don't. The Steelers' offense is just very lacking. They're not very good. Matt Canada should be fired. I would fire him tomorrow, if I would be able to, because the offense is just dreadful. I can't watch any more Steelers game until they get that offense fixed, because it's just absolutely dreadful to watch a Steelers game knowing how bad that offense really is. And if they're going to win by defense, well, they got another thing coming to them. They play the Bills. They're not going to win on defense against the Bills like that. It's not going to be that easy for them to win against the Bills on defense. Okay? They'll have to play the Bengals. They'll have to play the Browns again. They'll have to play the Ravens. All those teams in their division, they're all good. So, can't win like that. They're going to play the Bucks. Got to play the Dolphins. Got to play the Eagles, the Saints, the Colts. Even the Raiders, maybe, which is a winnable game. I don't know. I don't really see the Steelers winning any more games with Kenny Pickett as if they would with Mitchell Trubisky. That's how I see it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Steelers fans, but I have to say it. I really have to say it. All right, now we'll go on to the next game, the Browns and the Falcons game. The Browns lost on a field goal and threw an interception at the end of the game when they got the ball back from with Jacoby Brissett. So the Falcons, I have to say, yes, I said beware the Falcons. The Falcons are a sneaky team, man. I believe with the weak division of the NFC and how weak that the NFC South has been lately, with the Saints not really playing anything good, the Panthers have been playing outright awful. The Falcons could sneak in a playoff game here. They could at least, at the very least, could sneak away with a wild card spot at the number 7 seed. Because I feel like with the Falcons, I believe Arthur Smith has been doing a phenomenal job utilizing running backs like Cordell Patterson, as you see right here. It stinks that he's injured. He's on the IR right now. We'll see how long he's in there. So that's going to hurt them a lot. But they also have the rookie of Drake London, who's been playing really well lately. Kyle Pitts. I still don't know where you are, Kyle Pitts. I still don't know. Fantasy owner of Kyle Pitts, I still don't know where you are. Let's get going, man. Marcus Mariota has been playing admirably well. He's making plays. He's extending plays. He's getting back into the groove of things. Arthur Smith is doing a really good job scrapping together with what he does have and making it into a combined overall decent team. Now, their defense is still not the greatest. Falcons still choke games, for sure. But I feel like they're better on defense than they've been the last couple of years. because I feel like now they've closed out 2 games already, in which the Seahawks is not a good team, but the Browns is a good team. And they closed off the Browns. Probably would have been different if they had Deshaun Watson, but regardless, they closed out against 2 teams, and they could be easily 3-1 if they would have beaten the Saints. If they would have beaten the Saints, which is very likely if these 2 teams ever played again, very well likely could beat the Saints for sure. But the Falcons are a team to be reckoned with. I think the Falcons are playing just very well on offense, man. Like, I just don't know how else to really explain the Falcons. They're not the greatest unit in the world. Yeah, they're not the greatest in the world, but what they do have and what they do bring to the table is like admirable. And they're feisty. They want to win games. Arthur Smith combines everything with the offense that he does have for this team, and they all gel together quite well. That's how I look at it. So as far as that goes, they're a decent team. I like the way the Falcons are playing. They're not as bad as I thought they were going to be. I really thought that this team was going to be at the very least 1-16 or 2-15. I easily thought they would have been the worst team in the NFL, and that happens to be the complete opposite because I think they're a sneaky good team. They could make the playoffs if they play consistent still, and if Marcus Mariota can protect the football, get his passing game going, and their defense does not choke any more games, the Falcons can go to the playoffs. At the very least, they could make the 7th seed in the playoffs. Now, the Browns, on the other hand, are good. They've been playing admirable. Well, Jacoby Brissett has been playing better than what people give him credit for, sure, but they're still not the most consistent game manager team. And what I mean by that is that Jacoby Brissett does not close you out close games like that. We saw it against the Jets, and we saw it on Sunday against the Falcons. He does not close out all the time very close games. He got very lucky when he closed out the Panthers game. He probably should have lost that game too. They should have lost that game too, but they won it. That happens. It is what it is. But I digress. Anyway, the Browns, with what they do have in their defense, I feel like without Jadeveon Clowney and without Myles Garrett, I thought played well. I thought their defense looks good. Not great, but they're good. They were able to do a good job containing the run game. I thought they did a good job with the pass rush. I thought they kept up consistency. I thought the secondary played better than anybody would have really expected them to with a good receiver core. I thought their defense is playing well. Their offense also plays well too when they're running the ball with Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt. And now Amari Cooper's getting involved in the offense, so that helps things out a lot too, making this more of a dynamic overall good team. But they just can't. Jacoby Brissett just can't close out close games or win games that he should win, and that's a problem that could cost him the playoffs. But at the same time, there's some winnable games coming up in the next couple of weeks that they could win. So be on the lookout for that. But Browns fans, now you know exactly how the Falcons fans feel. They felt for a very long time. And the Falcons, I'm happy for them. Congrats on the win. I hope you get more wins down the road. I'm sure you will. Probably more wins than I ever would have anticipated for you guys to get. Browns, though, Jacoby Brissett, where are you guys? Let's get going. Let's start playing consistent football. Got to start winning the games that we're expected to win, guys. You're not going to make the playoffs if you don't win those games now. All right, real quick, the Cowboys, Washington, not a whole lot to say about this game. I didn't really watch much of this game, if I'm being honest. I watched a little bit of it on NFL Red Zone, which is mostly, I do watch most of those games on the NFL Red Zone. So just so all you guys know out there. But just based off of what I watched, Wentz looks like he's looking back into Carson Wentz when he was last year with the Colts and his last year with the Eagles. Just holds on to the ball for way too long. Can't make any big plays. He has to hold on to the ball. He has to make every single play himself. Yeah, Carson Wentz is just not playing like the Carson Wentz that we all know that he can play. And just traditionally, not for nothing, but this Washington defense is just trash. They're just not playing good. Their defensive coordinator, it's a shame. And I like Ron Rivera, and I was hoping that with getting Carson Wentz playing into this game, maybe would have sparked up the team to do some big things, but they haven't really done anything like that yet. I haven't seen the Commanders really be impressive, really, besides their week 1 game against Jacksonville. Ever since then, they've really been non existent. And I like what Washington has. I like what the receivers that they do have in Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, who's been playing better. He's been playing better and he's more involved than he was a year ago. Logan Thomas, you name it. The offensive line is supposed to be good, but has been dealing with some, I guess you could say, some injuries and just not being on the same page, allowing Carson Wentz to get sacked multiple times a game, which is a shame. Antonio Gibson, good running back, but I got to see more of him. Got to see him more involved in this and on this team in order for them to win games. But yes, the Commanders right now are just a very tricky team to figure out. They're good on paper, but we can't figure out this team. And if we can't figure out this team before like the midpoint of the season, then they're definitely in a lot of trouble and they could miss the playoffs easily. Now, the Cowboys, on the other hand, are looking better than I thought they would. And I think a lot of people could say that about the Cowboys. And I think a lot of what keeps the Cowboys in these games is not just Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush plays well. He's been playing well as Dak's backup, and hopefully he stays with them for a while. He's not the long-term answer because I don't believe he's the full-time NFL starter, but he's a good backup for what they have based off of the talent that they do have with CeeDee Lamb and Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, all those guys. But what's really keeping the Cowboys in these games is their defense. Their defense is so overwhelming. Guys, their defense is so overwhelming that it's absolutely, positively so hard to score any points on this insane, insane Cowboys pass rush. In fact, they could be playing maybe their best defense that I've seen them play in a long time, in my honest opinion. It's all because of their pass rush. Micah Parsons, you name it. Trayvon Diggs, who plays up there too, you name it. This defense is what keeps the Cowboys in these close games, low-scoring games, I guess you could say. And just by them beating up on the Commanders as big as they did, proves to you that the Cowboys might be a better team than what we anticipated. And I'm not a Cowboys fan. I am not a Cowboys fan. I never will become a Cowboys fan for as long as I shall live. But I have to admit where things are deservingly supposed to be admitted. I believe their defense is good. They should be at least a top 5 defensive unit in this league, in my opinion. And that's no exaggeration. They really are. And their offense is getting better. So this team could get better. They could be sneaky better. Or they could take over the Eagles in terms of being like the division leader. Because I think once they play the Eagles will have a hard time with playing against the Cowboys pass rush. I truly do believe it. Not whenever they do play it. I don't know exactly who the Cowboys play. I haven't even decided. I haven't even done any of my picks yet for the Cowboy or the Cowboy. No, sorry, can't speak. I haven't even done any of my picks yet for Week 5, which is supposed to be tomorrow. I might delay it to Thursday night, right before Thursday Night Football, but we'll see on that. But regardless, though, Cowboys are sneaking up there with some teams. I think they're going to be better than what people anticipated them to be. I think they're a dark horse to make it pretty deep in the playoffs, especially in a weak NFC. And, they're coming around. They're coming around to be a decent team that they could give some teams problems down the road. All right, nobody wants to play this team right now, and it's no exaggeration, and that is the Giants. And I did a quote by Dennis Green, the late, great Dennis Green, who coached for the Arizona Cardinals. And when they played against the Bears, they said, the Bears are who we thought they were. And that's true. They were exactly what they thought they were. The Bears are not a good team. Bears are not a good team. Giants took over that game, and they absolutely, positively dominated in pretty much all 3 phases. They didn't win by a lot. They won by 8 points, but that's a lot for if you are a Giants fan. That's a lot for them. That's a pretty big spread for them to win by 8 points. But the Giants are, man, let me tell you something. With Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, all these big time guys who may not have gotten like the biggest recognition, they're actually playing very well right now. And you know what the reason why they're playing so well? I'll give you one example. It has something to do with Brian Dable. Brian Dable did exactly what he was asked to do. He's able to do what he was asked of him to do, and that's to limit the mistakes of Daniel Jones and have him play consistent, have him play conservative a little bit. Don't let him play a lot of hero ball and whatnot. So that's good. I think he's been playing consistent. I thought he's been playing well lately. And we knew going in that this is a tough Bears defense. And it's a Bears defense that we've seen Daniel Jones struggle with in the last few years since he's played with the Giants and when he's played against the Bears. So he has struggled against the defense. But what we all got to really give him credit for is just based off of Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley absolutely dominated in this game, and which was expected. He absolutely dominated. He exposed the defense of the Bears where they're struggling in the run defense, which is something that they typically kind of do. They kind of struggle a little bit in their run defense a little bit. So Saquon took that to the house, and he absolutely positively took care of that. He had 31 carries for 146 yards. That's a lot. That's a lot of yardage for sure. Daniel Jones had some couple touchdowns. He was actually, I believe he was the only touchdown, the only one that rushed for 2 touchdowns. He was the only one. And Tyrod Taylor got to play a little bit too in this game, which was a little bit shocking. I was not expecting Tyrod Taylor to play for a little bit because of how good Daniel Jones is. But I think the reason why he played a little bit is because of how Daniel Jones got hurt a little bit in this game. And when Tyrod Taylor got hurt, yes, Tyrod Taylor does get hurt too, folks. Jones came back into the game and he took care of things from there. So there's some good things I like about the Giants. There's some good things I like about their defense too. Their defense is playing consistent. I like how they come together as one, and I like how they team up, and they don't just like blitz every single time like the Ravens do or what they used to do in years past. They're playing man coverage. They're playing well defense. And even if they're not like the strongest unit in this league, they're playing very feisty. They're doing a great job getting to the big time receivers on the other side of the ball, and they're covering them. They're playing well on both sides of the ball, and I give a lot of that credit to Brian Dable. I think they did the right thing by hiring him. The team's 3-1 right now. They could potentially have a playoff berth for the first time in quite a long time, 6 years. 7 years, something like that. It's been a long time since the Giants have made the playoffs, and this could be their year this year. And also, just keep in mind, too, this also could be an opportunity for them to even take control of the division, too. It's between them, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. Just something to think about there. And speaking of the Eagles, they're the last undefeated team. They started very sluggish. Yes, they did start off a little bit sluggish. Jalen Hurts threw a pick 6. They gave up a couple touchdowns early, which honestly I thought the Jags would actually run off with this game, considering of how impressive the Jags have been playing on both sides lately. It was a little bit surprising of how the Jags kind of started off the way that they did. I thought they were going to run away with this game, but I spoke too soon, and the Eagles came back and they won this game. And how did they did that? They just absolutely dominated the rest of this game. The Jags defense, however, has been playing consistent. They've been playing well. They get to the quarterback. I like this Jags team. I think they could have easily won this game. But the reason why they didn't win this game is obviously it was because of reasons. They had too many mistakes. They had 5 turnovers, which doesn't help you win any games at all. And the Eagles just ran absolutely all over them. They absolutely ran all over them. And that's the vocal point of their offense is their run game. If they can get the run game going, they're hard to stop. Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, both really good running backs. They should be splitting a lot of time with each other this year. We're going to see more of that happen. Jalen Hurts had some good throws after that pick six. He had a good game overall. I thought his passing game was better than I thought it would have. And I think this was one of the biggest tests, I believe, for the Eagles. And I thought they persevered it well. They took advantage of it. But the Jags also did well, too. I thought Trevor Lawrence had despite the 5 turnovers, not specifically from him, but what this whole Jags team did, and despite with the weather and whatnot, James Robinson non existent and whatnot, they played a good game. I thought they played a good game. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's getting on the right track. He's stepping up. He's making good throws, good decisions than he did. A lot better than last year under Urban Meyer. So there's a lot to be admired from the Jags in their future. And it was a little disappointing that they didn't beat the Eagles, but they did deserve to lose this game just for a couple of reasons. And one of them really was because of they couldn't stop the run. They just absolutely could not stop the run from the Eagles in any given way, regardless. So, yeah, that's how I look at it on that. All right, not going to talk too much about this game, despite many injuries to the Lions. Yep, they were able to muster 45 points. Yeah, that's, Geno Smith and Jared Goff. I know a lot of people pick on them as starters, and I know I've said some few things about them in years past, not on this podcast because I haven't had this podcast for that long. But just like with having conversations from people, listening to people like Bottom Line View or Tom Grossi, like some of those guys that I like to listen to, or there was another one I like too that I like listening to, TPS, that franchise guy. There's a lot of good podcasts I listen to on a daily basis of, the NFL and keeping up with everything, hearing their opinions. Geno Smith and Jared Goff are playing better football than anybody would have ever expected them to. Geno Smith might actually end up being finally, after so many adversities that he's been through since he was with the Jets, being a backup to Eli with the Giants, and so on and so forth. He's been around the league for a while now, and he's never had the chance or the opportunity to be a full-time NFL starter just based off of what he's done when he played for when he played for the Jets. It wasn't very pretty for him there. But if you play with the Jets, you don't expect anything special. Sorry, Jets fans. But this I just think with Geno Smith, he's playing better than people are giving him credit for. I think he's playing good football. I like Geno Smith. I like what he's been able to do. Could he be a full-time starter in this league? I think as long as he stays with the Seahawks, yeah, he probably could. He probably could be the full-time starter. I just think with him playing at quarterback, it makes a big difference with him over Drew Lock. I think they made the right decision by starting him over Drew Lock because I don't think Drew Lock would have won any games. I think they'd be 0-4 if Drew Lock was playing. Geno Smith has been playing better than what people think, and he's connecting really well with DK Metcalf. Who got hurt in this game. Hopefully he's okay and he'll be back soon to play for this team because I think without him, that kind of lacks a lot for the Seahawks in their passing game. So I hope he does come back soon. Tyler Lockett, who's been there here and there too, he's doing well. The running game was Rashad Penny, who just absolutely positively ran all over this Detroit Lions defense, which wasn't really that surprising because the Lions defense is the absolute worst in the NFL right now. But the Seahawks are just right there with them. The defense is awful too. But yeah, I mean, I like what Geno Smith has been doing. I like what the Seahawks have been doing post Russell Wilson era. And we'll see if Geno Smith is going to be the full-time starter for them. We'll see if he can carry them for next year's team too. I like what he's done. I like the Seahawks team. I think they have talent around them. Probably underrated talent than people really give him credit for. So, yeah, he's playing well. Jared Goff, he's also playing well too right now. He had some big-time throws. He had some big-time touchdowns despite losing 48-45. Despite losing, Jared Goff has been playing better than what anybody would think. And just quite truthfully, just to throw this out there right now, I don't know how many people wants to hear this, but Jared Goff's stats right now, yeah, his stats, probably better than Matthew Stafford's. Just saying. Probably better than Matthew Stafford's stats. And the Rams traded Matthew Stafford, who hasn't been playing well, They traded Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff. So I'm not saying either or is better right now, but Jared Goff is playing better than Matthew Stafford. Just saying. So they're playing well. I think both teams have a lot of bright future until they get that defense straightened out. Neither one of them are going anywhere this year, I don't think. But if they can get their defenses straightened out and they both continue playing consistent quarterback play, watch out. They could be dangerous. All right, we have a couple more left, I believe. Probably more than that, honestly, but we'll make it quick. Are the Titans back on track, and are the Colts in trouble? The Titans had an impressive win over the Colts, a division rival, someone that they've kind of, I guess you could say they've won 4 straight, so they've kind of not owned them per se, but they've had the best of the Colts for the last couple of years, as you can see. They won last week, and they probably could have won a lot more. Yeah, I guess you could say the Titans they're back, but I wouldn't say they're back on track, if that makes sense. I feel like back on track is just speaking way too soon about a team that hasn't really proven anything yet. It's just what I'm seeing right now. Ryan Tannehill looks better, but still is lost without A.J. Brown. He still hasn't really figured out a way to relieve himself away from the A.J. Brown history, I guess you could say. But Derrick Henry looks like he's back on track. I thought Derrick Henry had an amazing game against the Colts. I thought he ran all over them, and he probably could have scored more touchdowns if they didn't have that one touchdown call back for an offensive holding. But I like Derrick Henry. I like what he's done. I thought he had a good run game. I thought he did a good job with getting some open spots for, against the Colts defense that's been kind of lacking a little bit. They're kind of struggling with stopping the run or stopping the pass or anything like that. So the Colts have been having some problems. But the Titans looked like they were good enough to win, but they've got to really not win the close games that they do. They've won 2 close games in a row where they probably could have almost lost both of those games, but more so they could have lost the Raiders game if they didn't stop that 2-point conversion. But they had a nice win against the Colts. I was kind of impressed with the way Tannehill played. He does not look like he's back into like my top 10 favorite, the top 10 quarterbacks in the league right now. I think that those days are over, but he's serviceable. He played good enough to help this team get to the victory. Derrick Henry looks like he's getting back on track. We'll see in terms of next week and how he does, and we'll see if he really is truly back to the way he is, but it looks like he is. I think he's being used a lot better than he's been. And yeah, and their defense is, still injured. They still have some injured players, but they've been playing pretty good, though. Now, as far as the Colts being in trouble, yeah, they could be. They could be in trouble. Not going to lie, the Colts could be in trouble if they don't start winning games. Matt Ryan, looking old, washed up. Yeah, not been playing too good lately. Jonathan Taylor now being injured. We'll see how long he's going to be out for. They've got some injuries, man. And I've been talking about the Colts the last couple of weeks, but they're just not playing good, man. Like, I was hoping that they would be playing better. I was hoping they would be playing better than they were, but they're not playing very well right now. They're not playing very well, and it's a shame. So, yeah, they very well likely could be in trouble. And that division crown of theirs that, I kind of thought they would be winning this year, that could easily be taken away too. All right, and speaking of another division crown that I thought would win the division already this year, the Chargers. Yeah, the Chargers just, I don't know. They won. Great. Good for them. Probably should have taken them out of my top 10 this week. That's great that they won. Good for them. Congratulations. They beat the worst team in the league. But you're up 21-0. You're about to run away with this game. And then they come back 27-24. And then you score the final touchdown with Austin Eckler. And I will say this. Austin Eckler was phenomenal in this game. As expected. With a terrible run defense of the Texans, it was expected that Austin Eckler would have a good game. And he did. Phenomenal game. He helped me out in fantasy football. So that's good. But yeah, man, I mean, The Texans have shown some flashes here and there, but I feel like the Chargers just got ahead of themselves so early in the game that it looked like it was going to be a runaway for them. It looked like it was going to be a runaway. It looked like the Texans couldn't do anything at all on the Chargers, no matter how hard they tried. They wouldn't have been able to do anything. They couldn't do anything. But Texans came back. They scored some more points. Damian Pierce, the running back for the Texans, he's a pretty darn good player. Good running back for them. I think he's the future for the. Well, could he be the future? Yeah, he could be. The future for this team at least. He could be helping the team for this future. But he had an impressive showing against the Chargers defense, who was terrible against the run last year. And they still haven't really been all that great against the run yet, but better than they were a year ago. Last year, they were the second worst run defense ever. Like, in terms of last year, they really were. But, yeah, Damian Pierce could be a future for this team. We'll see. But right now, he's really one of the only few good players on the Texans that I probably would be giving the ball to more. Just saying. But, I mean, I understand with all the injuries for, the Chargers and everything, but you would think that they would have probably really absolutely obliterated the Texans, just like they were in the first half of this game. But I almost lost it, man. It's a little scary. But I want to go back to this. For being a number 32 team, they're probably the worst team in this league, the Texans, right now. But they've had some flashes. I give them some credit for what they do. They've been running the ball nicely. I think their defense shows some flashes, like specifically more in their consistency of pass rush. It's been a little inconsistent, but very underrated though. I think they've done all right in that. But they can't stop the run for anything, no. That's why Austin Eckler had a good game. And the Chargers couldn't stop the run either. So if they would have just ran the ball the entire game, like this game probably would have been just back and forth the entire time. But that didn't happen to be the case. Because Justin Herbert and that whole offense, even without Keenan Allen, they absolutely dominated in the first half, but just shied away, man. And if you're a team that's expecting to do some big things, if you want to go to the playoffs and whatnot, then you really got to start performing better. You got to start like really dominating teams, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. There's no reason why you shouldn't blow out the Texans. No reason for it whatsoever. All right, this game, Panthers, Cardinals. I watched a lot more of this game than really any of the other games, if I'm being honest with you, because I kind of wanted to just sit down and watch Baker Mayfield play and really analyze and see how he really does with this new scheme of the Panthers offense. And boy, let me tell you that they've got a lot to clean up, man. The Panthers have a lot to clean up. A lot to clean up. I was not impressed at all with the way that, like, I don't get it, man. Like, their offense has just been so bad. So bad. And quite truthfully, their defense, if anything, got them all their 10 points. Got 10 points or 16 points, whatever it was. But, yeah, they've just been so bad lately. I don't even want to talk about this game because it was just so hard. It's just as hard to watch as it was for me to watch the Steelers because of how bad their offense is and just how so dreadful it was to watch Baker Mayfield. I love Baker Mayfield. I am so sorry, Panthers fans, Baker Mayfield fans, you name it. I'm sorry, but it was just bad. It's time for Matt Rule to go. It's time for Ben McAdoo to go. Like, no matter who you put in a quarterback, it doesn't help you anything. It does not help you at all. They just their offense is just so bad. But their defense, however, I like their pass rush. I like the consistency of that. I like how they stop the run. I think they've been doing a really good job in limiting mistakes on defense. I thought their defense has been playing fine, but they get tired out because they're on the field for so long, it seems like. Every time I flipped the channel to this game, I'm telling you, every single time I flipped to this game, it always seemed like the defense was out there on the field. Every single time. Because the Panthers just can't get anything started. Like, no run game, a consistent run game with McCaffrey. Well, he's been playing all right. He's probably the best player on this team, for sure. Definitely is the best player on this team. But just so, I don't know what it is about the Panthers, man. Like, on paper, they're really not that bad, but in the real world, the way they're playing, they really are. They're dreadful. Awful to watch. And I can't say it's all Baker Mayfield's fault. Yes, he's made some very bad decisions with the football, but it's not really all his fault. I think it's the offense. I think it's the offensive playbook. It's a scheme that's under Matt Rule and Ben McAdoo, and they need to be fired immediately. I would fire them tomorrow because of just how bad their offense is. Just so bad. So bad. All right, the Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders finally won. The Raiders are no longer winless. They finally won against a team that I picked them to beat. I picked them to beat the Denver Broncos. And they did it. They won. They looked like the Raiders that I thought they were going to be this year. Congratulations, Raiders. You finally get yourself a win over the Broncos. Is it an impressive win? Yeah, I would say so. But it's not a shocking win, if that makes sense. Why? Because we already know. We already know the story about the Broncos. A lot of questions about them. We know they're not consistent. We know there's a lot of problems with the offense. We know there's a lot of problems with Nathaniel Hackett and their coaching staff. And now they're going to struggle more because guess who's out now? And he's going to be out the rest of the year. Their best running back, Javonte Williams. So they now have to rely on their run game, on the running back, who I believe should be cut already after fumbling 4 times. 4 times this season. And we're not even at the midpoint of the season yet. And that's Melvin Gordon. They're probably going to have to rely more on him and Matt Boone to get running plays going. I feel like Melvin Gordon should have been cut already, considering him fumbling 4 times, losing the ball. And he's good. He's a good running back, but he can't hold on to the ball, man. He just can't run. He can't hold on to the ball. That's scary. So what does this team do now without Javonte Williams? Javonte Williams was their best running back. Yes, teams couldn't tackle him for the life of him. It seemed like every single defensive player that tried to tackle him, they all got hurt immediately. Probably exaggeration, but they always seem like the defenders get hurt rather than him. But he got hurt. And he will miss the rest of the season with a torn ACL. So, I don't know. A lot of questions now for the Broncos. It's not a shocking win that the Raiders got, but at the same time, it's a nice, satisfying win for them to beat someone in the division. It's a game that they needed to win in the division. Now we'll see if they can win for next week with the Chiefs. I'll talk more about that game when it comes to it tomorrow night or Thursday. I'll make the announcement sometime tomorrow and decide whether or not I want to do my week 5 predictions tomorrow night or Thursday night. I'll let you all know on that. But yeah, I mean, this was the kind of game that the Raiders needed to win, and they finally got themselves a win. The only winless team now, really, technically, is the Texans that haven't won a game yet. They tied a game with the Colts. That's nice. Whoop-de-doo. But they still haven't won a game yet. And it's nice to see the Raiders finally win. And hopefully that will continue the rest of the way. All right, meet Bailey Zappi. The Packers on the ropes for a 27-24 overtime escape. Yes, I will say this right now. the Packers, this win for them was not impressive. In fact, I believe they should have lost this game. They definitely should have lost this game. But at the same time they also kind of deserved the win a little bit, I guess. I don't know. It's Lambeau Field. You would expect Aaron Rodgers to really dominate. You would expect the Packers as a whole to dominate a lot more at home, but they struggled enormously. Bill Belichick had a great game plan against Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. He had a great game plan against them. They've done a really nice job. And without having Mac Jones, guys, like the go-ons from Brian Hoyer, who gets hurt early in the first quarter, and then you got to turn the game to a third-string quarterback, and you almost win. Your first NFL career game happens to be against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, and you're tied with him 24-24 going into overtime. Like, guys, regardless of how good of a player you really are, regardless of how good of a quarterback you are, that's impressive. That's a big honor to be a part of a game that's tight like that, and you're not even expected to win. That's impressive. Now, when I say Bailey Zappi was good in this game, he had some flashes. I thought he played admirable, acceptable. Obviously, he made some big mistakes here and there, but that's what you don't play a lot of football, so that's prone to happen. That happens. But I thought he played admirable. I thought there were some flashes of some good things that I saw from him. But he's definitely not a starter in this league, though. But he could be a good, solid backup. If you were to pick him up anywhere, I think he could be a solid backup for you. Because the way that he played against the Packers with very limited receivers that he did have, Jacoby Myers was out for this game. And you have to rely on, some of your players that you don't really know all that much about, and you come close in this game, that's impressive. To me, that's impressive for a third string quarterback. Absolutely, for sure. I thought they did a good job. And they also did a good job running the ball too. I thought they did better with running the ball with Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. I thought they did better with running the ball than they've done all season so far. I thought they did a good job with running the ball. They took advantage of the Green Bay's awful run defense. And I just think it was an overall good appearance from the Patriots. I thought they scored more. They scored just about the amount of the same points as they did last week against the Ravens. I think they're just a better team than what we're giving them credit for. But the reason why they're 1-3 is because, well, they lost to some good teams. They lost to the Dolphins, that's very good. They lost to the Ravens. And now they lost to the Packers. So they lost to at least two teams that are in my top 10. At least two teams that are in the top 10. Or three teams, rather. I guess you could say they lost to three teams that are at least in the top 10. Which is impressive. Those are tough losses to have. And for you to go in to Lambeau and lose the way that you lose is impressive. It's a satisfying loss that you'll learn from. It's not a game to really get upset about. It's a game to really be honored about, I guess you could say, for going in as a third-string quarterback and being on the ropes with Aaron Rodgers. That's a big moment for you. All right, we got two more games left. Could we potentially see this matchup again with Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes? The likelihood of that even happening is probably slim, maybe. Could be a little slim. But honestly, at the end of the day, when you think about it, it's really not. I don't think it would be that shocking if we saw the Bucs and the Chiefs repeat in a Super Bowl. Just because of how, we'll talk about the Chiefs. The Chiefs are playing better than I was expecting them to this year. I mean, besides Patrick Mahomes. We know Patrick Mahomes would still win. We know he would still make the playoffs and everything. But they're playing better than I thought they would have. And I think the Chiefs right now are playing better football than a lot of other teams in the AFC. minus the Bills. So maybe if they beat the Bills again, could beat the Bills. But I like the Bills as my Super Bowl favorite this year to win, possibly. The Chiefs could also very well possible make the Super Bowl too. Now on the NFC side, we know Tom Brady's the GOAT, obviously. Him, the Rams, the 49ers, the Vikings, the Packers, like any of those teams could win, but the very likelihood that Tom Brady comes back to an NFC championship and possibly winning is very likely that he would. Because let me tell you something right now. I think the Bucks, despite their record right now, I think honestly, at the end of the day, I would trust the Bucks to go ahead and win me the big game at the biggest moment than I would trust the Rams right now. More than I would trust the Vikings. More than I would trust the Packers. Like those kind of teams. Maybe even more than the Niners. So I think the Bucks right now may be the better team. They may have a worse record than the Rams do, a worse record than the Rams do, but I think they're better than the Rams, personally. I think they're personally better, and I think by the end of the year, if even the Rams even make the playoffs, which they should, I think they still will make the playoffs. But even if they do, I don't think they're repeating another Super Bowl, just the way that they've been playing lately. We'll talk about them more later. But it's very likely that we'll see another Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl game, though. I personally believe it. Just by the things that I saw on Sunday night, there's a lot to really admire from both teams, really. Yes, I think the Chiefs had a near perfect offensive game, despite some little mistakes that they made. Patrick Mahomes threw an interception. Yeah, that happens. But regardless of that, I thought their offense took advantage of the strong Bucks defense that's been so strong for the first 3 weeks of the season. They gave a lot of teams a lot of problems. I thought Patrick Mahomes was like, yeah, no problem. I'm going to drop back, make some big throws, throw some touchdowns, and maybe run the ball a little bit here and there. Have my running back do some things. Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs did everything right. And I think the reason why they did everything right was not just because of Patrick Mahomes and, the very good game, rounded game that he played. A lot of it really has to do with Andy Reid. Andy Reid is the best coach right now. I think Andy Reid is the best coach in the league. Behind, maybe he's probably just above or behind maybe Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, those kind of coaches. But yeah, I mean, Mahomes, man, I mean, he looked very sharp against this very daunting Bucks defense. Now, the Bucks on the other side got it to a very slow start. They had some errors happen, especially in the beginning of the game. They fumbled on the kickoff return, which is something that shouldn't have happened on the very first play. That shouldn't have happened, but it did. So they got to a very slow start. They had a really, really hard time. For whatever reason, they couldn't run the ball much with Leonard Fournette. The only reason why Leonard Fournette had the stats that he did or scored in the touchdown that he did is because it wasn't because of his rushing, because he couldn't rush for anything. He had -3 yards for 3 rushes. They didn't run the ball a lot, and even if they did, they weren't very successful in it. They used him more into the passing game, which is something that they did last year. The Bucks did last year with Leonard Fournette. They used him a lot in a running game, or both a running game and a passing game, which I like seeing more running backs get involved in the passing game because I think that just makes a lot of things work better. I think you can, I think it really helps you advance your offense a little bit more if you do that and kind of trick up the defense a little bit of what you're going to do, my opinion. But yeah, Leonard Fournette kind of struggled in this game, which I was not expecting him to really struggle at all, despite with like the Chiefs defense, the run defense that really hasn't been playing so hot. I expected him to be more. But I thought Brady overall played a very good game. Mike Evans came back in and got 2 touchdowns for this team. Brady looked like he was back on track. I thought he looked better than he did the first 3 weeks, in my opinion. I think he looked like he was back on track. He took advantage of the lacking of the Chiefs' defense, especially in pass rush and secondary that took advantage of quite well. And yeah, that's why I say it wouldn't shock me if we saw these two teams play again in the Super Bowl. not be shocked at all. So, yeah, it was an overall good game. I didn't really get to watch the whole thing. I kind of went to bed a little bit after halftime, maybe into the fourth quarter, and it looked like it was kind of it was going to be looked like a Tom Brady comeback, maybe even potentially win it, but their defense just let up more points than I was expecting them to really let up. So that happens, but it was an overall good game. I thought both teams played well or admirable at least in that sense. So that could be a Super Bowl matchup again. We'll see what happens. All right, Shanahan owns McVay. End of story. Okay, Shanahan owns McVay. That's end of story right there. Okay, Niners are now 7-0. 7-0. Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan, they're 7-0 against the Rams in the regular season. That's pretty darn impressive. That's pretty darn impressive, guys. And now, are the Niners? What are the Niners? Let's talk about that. Are the Niners a legit contender for the Super Bowl? Are they content? Are they a contention for the NFC? Are they a threat to the Super Bowl? Like, are they a really good team? I guess you can argue and say they're a well-coached team. They've definitely got talent. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, who's getting a little bit more involved now, but I like to see him more. The two pair of running backs of Jeff Wilson and Eli Mitchell. Jennings, who's also getting more involved too. But I think what it is really about the Niners is not just because of Kyle Shanahan and what he can do coaching, because he is a great coach for sure. But I think what really helps too is having Jimmy Garoppolo in the locker room. I think when you have someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not no Tom Brady, he's no Patrick Mahomes, he's not any of that kind of stuff, but he knows the Niners better than any other quarterback for the Niners that's been there in quite a long time. Since probably after Joe Montana. Like, I just feel like Jimmy Garoppolo is the best quarterback that they've had since Joe Montana, probably. Now, again, he's no Tom Brady. He's no Patrick Mahomes. Certainly no Joe Montana. Definitely not Joe Montana. But what Jimmy does do well in, and we've talked about it multiple times over and over again. He's a Teddy Bridgewater. He's Mac Jones. Kirk Cousins, I guess you could say a little bit, but I think Kirk Cousins makes bigger and better throws down the field. Jimmy Garoppolo manages the game perfectly with what he's given, the team that surrounded him, and the team that best supports him. So this team with the Niners supports him very well. Well, besides the whole trading rumors and wanting to start Lance over Jimmy G, but that'll be for a different video. But they support him better in terms of making him more aware of the game, I guess you could say, and taking advantage of opportunities that are there and managing the game. So that's really what works to Shanahan's, mindset more than it did with Trey Lance. Trey Lance, when he was in, you watch the first game with the Niners of week 1, you can tell when they lost that game to the Bears, they just did not look in sync at all. Looked absolutely dreadful with Trey Lance, despite the weather conditions. Yeah, I know that made a big difference for them. But I just think that with having Jimmy G into an offense, like with what you do have in your style offense of what you have, Deebo, George Kittle, I think with the offense that you do have and the scheme that you kind of like having to do, like you kind of strictly want to focus more on running than you do with like the passing game. I think it makes a big difference. I think Kyle Shanahan coaches Jimmy Garoppolo to the best of the ways that he can accommodate and work around with what he's best in, and the talent that he does have, he works very well with. That's how it is. And the defensive side of the Niners could be at least a top 3 unit or top 5, at least in the top 5 unit. That defense is just so good. And their defense played so well against the Rams offense that's very struggling. They took advantage of it. Matthew Stafford looked like he was all over the place, and Matthew Stafford's looked very off this year. The first 4 weeks of the season, he's looked very off. And I'm not sure really what it is. And I think he just seems very skittish. I don't know what it is about Matthew Stafford, but he looks way more skittish and less confident than he did last year in his Super Bowl run. And I think he just looks, I don't know why he really looks like that. I think what it is really that he's missing is he's missing someone like Odell Beckham that he can throw the ball to in a deep threat. And he doesn't really have any receivers that do that. Yeah, Cooper Kupp is awesome and everything, and he's the most targeted receiver in this league. And he's Stafford's favorite target for sure. But really, you can't just keep throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp every time. I think Stafford's getting that. I think Stafford's understanding a little bit that, like, I can't keep throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp. And if you watched a little bit of last night's game, and there's not a whole lot of it you had to watch, but when you watched it last night, when I watched it at least, it seemed like he was targeting more with different receivers that he did have. I think last night he was trying to get more receivers involved, like Tyler Higbee, Ben Skoranek, he was getting more involved in. Allen Robinson, I don't know what it is about him and Allen Robinson, but they haven't really connected anything big yet. So I think last night was like the first time in the first 4 weeks that I've seen Stafford play ball, target different receivers besides Cooper Kupp like 100 times a game, which is good, but also kind of messes up with your head a little bit because you think you're going to go to Cooper Kupp every single time when you want to try to find a different receiver to go down the field with. So, I don't know. I don't know what it is about Stafford. I don't know what it is about the Rams, but there's a lot of questions about the Rams right now. I don't totally love exactly everything that the Rams are doing right now. I think there's just a lot of questions right now. They could still win you games. Yeah, sure, they definitely can win you games still. But there's just a lot of question marks about the Rams right now. Really not so much on their defense. I think they've been playing solid defense, but their offense, and it really just starts with offensive line. It starts with and it ends really with Matthew Stafford at the end of the day. And I think with just Matthew Stafford, he just looks so out of sync. He looks very skittish, and he doesn't look like he feels comfortable throwing the ball anywhere else unless Cooper Kupp's open. I think there's just a lot of problems with that. And don't get me wrong, obviously Cooper Kupp's your best receiver, sure, but you can't keep throwing to him every single time. Otherwise, teams are going to figure that out. And I think with the team like the Niners and with other teams that they have coming up, I think they're going to start. They're going to watch film and they're going to see how many times a game that he targets Cooper Kupp. And teams are going to eventually get that figured out. And the Rams' run game, too. I'll mention that before I sign off. The Rams' run game right now is also just not very good. Cam Akers is like not doing anything. I don't know where he's been. He's not really existent yet, which is very disappointing, especially for fantasy drafters who drafted him in your fantasy. And Darrell Henderson, I believe, should be getting more touches. And I don't believe he did last night. I didn't really take a look too much of his stat line. But I feel like just right now with their run game is just non-existent. And that also could cause some problems too later on in the season if they don't get that started. Just saying. But that was Monday night's game. Impressive win for the Niners. Congratulations to the Niners. Congratulations to Shanahan and Jimmy G for getting your first win, first real win, I guess you could say, together. I guess the Seahawks kind of counts as a win for Jimmy G, but I think it's like the second time starting the entire game. You probably could be considered like your real first win. So that was good right there. It was overall a game that I kind of expected to be kind of sloppy for the Rams and more dominance with the Niners. And so that's how I pictured it. So there you go. All right, everybody. I apologize. I was hoping I wouldn't go over an hour, close to 2 hours in this game, but in this, this live stream, but it happens though. It happens to the best of us. But I appreciate everybody that was coming on and listening on tonight. I know I talk a lot. I definitely go into a lot of detail. I talk too much, but also would make it very fast too if you guys also could start live chatting with me too if you could, because the more conversations I have with you guys, the more I'll be able to talk about and the more things that I address, because I know I'll leave a lot out on the plate that I don't really get to dish out and really talk about with you guys. So that really does help too. And the only way that's really going to help is drop a like on this video, also leave a comment down below. Those are all the things that are really going to help me out in trying to get my videos to become better. So make sure you put a like on this video if you haven't already. Also, leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear your feedback and your comments and what you would like me to do for future videos. I've taken one into consideration, and I'm probably going to start doing that. Maybe might try to get some time to do it this weekend and get that started for the request that was taken from me. So I might get that started this weekend, and I'll let you guys know on that. But drop a like on this video, drop a comment down below as well, and see what you guys like. Also, just for the sake of it too, it's been a while since I've had subscribers. Just hit that subscribe button on this YouTube channel, JP Football Fanatics, and also hit that notification bell. I start new videos usually every Tuesday and Wednesday nights, 8 and 9 o'clock respectively. And just hit that notification bell. The more people that I get to come on to these videos, the better my life will be. And so that way I can be able to talk some football with you guys. And I want to be able to talk some football with anybody that's a football fanatic. So hit that subscribe button if you're able to. And also drop a like and hit that comment button down below. And with all that being said, folks, this is your boy, JP Football Fanatic, saying peace out, everybody, and we will see you all either tomorrow night or Thursday night. Just be on the lookout. If you're on Facebook, be on the lookout for Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat too, just to be on the announcement of whether or not I'm going to do my week 5 picks either tomorrow or Thursday. So just be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, have a great night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.